I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color. You see me? The Hard NOC Life. Comics, movies, and TV. Yeah.
Hey, it's Hard NOC Life. I'm Keith Chow.
Hey, it's Dominic Ma. Hi, Keith Chow. And
Hi, Dom Ma.
Hard Knockers.
You are coming off a great interview with Awkwafina, which you all can read on our website. We were just talking about it.
Yeah.
Tell me about that experience. You were at the San Francisco Lunar New Year Parade, which she was grand marshaling, and there to promote Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah. So it was both Kung Fu Panda 4 is coming out in like about a week. And also she was the grand marshal of San Francisco's Lunar New Year Parade, or the Chinese New Year Parade, which is it's a weird title. It sounds like you're like dispensing justice in Deadwood or something, like Grand Marshal, but it just means you're like, the well-recognized Asian host person. She mentioned how John Chu and Michelle Yeoh have both had that title in the past. And so I got to interview her about both those things, and then we ended up talking about other things because whatever I can.
And you got to throw in your karaoke question because you love to tag every interview you do with people.
Yeah, that's something I want to do in
That's
every
your, like,
single
signature
interview. Yeah, and I don't know if that's like weird, but like to me, it's like a really good way to get a sense of people's personality.
I think at least in every situation where I've seen it happen, I think the subject usually loves the question, and you get some great content out of that. And it was relevant to Awkwafina because you mentioned in your interview, and please go check it out. We'll put some links in the description and everything. But you were actually doing your interview in the hotel that her character from Shang-Chi is supposed to be an employee of, and Shang-Chi famously has her and Simu Liu singing karaoke with Wong at the end.
Yeah, no. So today for this podcast, I'm really going to have San Francisco on the mind. Not about the 49ers necessarily, but about San Francisco stuff because they're just there. And yes, on that specific point, so we were in the Fairmont Hotel, which if anyone knows or doesn't, it's an literally iconic hotel in San Francisco. It's at the top of a big ass hill, one of the San Francisco hills that you're sweaty if you need to walk there like a block because it's a steep hill. And in Shang-Chi, yes, in the opening act, she and Shang are valets at the Fairmont Hotel, fancy ass place where the rich Asians come and have their cars parked. And at one point later, they're drunk and walking home for work, and they go to a karaoke bar. And I was talking to her because I just had to say it. This was one of the most touching things looking back. Like for me, that first act of Shang-Chi is the one that gets me in all the Asian American feels. I don't know how I feel about it. And again, looking back, it was during the pandemic time when movies we're just going to them, but then Shang-Chi had the ill luck to be released during this time, right? So we rented a private room. It's just me and frankly a lot of my karaoke buddies who didn't have shit to do at the time, and we watched Shang-Chi. And when that scene come up and they look at each other and they're like, "Gee, what should we do now?" Like everyone in the audience knew what we were going to do now. And that was like a brilliant moment. So yeah, but yeah, so obviously, and we're all Asian American and Chinese American people, and we know about karaokeing. So I had to ask her what's her two favorite songs were to do in karaoke.
And it was, if I recall, Oasis was one. And what was the other? The Eagles?
She said Oasis, Wonderwall,
right,
and the Eagles, Take It Easy. What are your two favorite karaoke songs, if you have them?
Yeah, it changes for sure. But I guess my go-tos lately have been Harvest Moon by Neil Young.
Oh, that's cool.
And I go a slower vibe.
Yeah.
And recently I decided, in honor of Baowen's documentary on Netflix, I did We Are the World as everybody in We Are the World.
Oh my God. Wow, that's dope.
Solo. I did it solo as everybody in We Are the World.
That's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned it because that is a cool documentary that's out right now.
Yeah.
And
the greatest night in pop.
Yeah. And of course, all the part, like, the Cindy Lauper part and
yeah,
the Huey Lewis part.
And then you got to sing it like Bruce at the end. It's great. If we're ever in the same vicinity again and we go karaokeing again, we got to do the
Totally.
We Are the World, but specifically as the people.
Totally. Yeah, no, it makes it so much fun. Yeah, so that's a good documentary. Great, great group song. And yeah, of course, in Shang-Chi, if we recall, they do some Hotel California. They do A Whole New World, which is very Asian American thing to do, but also happens to help the Disney cause because, hey, we already have the rights to that song.
That's
So,
a good point. That's a
you
great
know,
point.
these things fold together. Anyway, but more on, it was just real cool being in San Francisco this past weekend because just because the whole Chinese New Year vibe was going on, the whole Lunar New Year vibe. And, you know, a lot of people are down on San Francisco these days for various social, political, economic reasons. It was nice to just get a whiff of like, oh, San Francisco was a cool place and very important in history of Asians in America, among other things. And this parade is fucking loud and crazy, but people are generally got their shit together and they're having a good time. So
Yeah.
what else?
And did you get a chance to watch Kung Fu Panda?
Yes. I had BART public transportation problem, so I didn't see the whole thing. That's another thing about getting to San Francisco. But I did not see the whole thing, and haven't seen all the Kung Fu Panda movies. But the section I saw, it was really fun.
What? And so, I mean, I guess I can't ask then what your general. I've never seen a second of any of them, and not like as a statement. I just never got around to watching any of the Kung. I did find it interesting that Awkwafina said she grew up on those movies, and I'm like, wait, how young are you? Because those movies aren't that old, right?
Generational thing. I'm guessing she's 36 because she also gave the key info that it's her year. It's the
Right.
dragon year, so we can
She's either
infer
36 or 48.
she's either 24, 36, or 48. If she's 12, well, she's not 12. But anyway, so that's
Not that
that's
you
a-
should be guessing people's ages, but you know,
But
when
yeah,
you
but
say you're the year of the dragon, it's
yeah, no,
indivisible by 12, so you can
yes,
figure
you
it.
can infer. So I'm guessing she's 36. So that's interesting to me is, you know, again, we're talking about the millennial points of reference. And yeah, Kung Fu Panda was a big deal for certain people. Also, the 24-year-old people, it would be for them.
Yeah, but she's definitely not 24. 'Cause
Okay,
that
so
means she was like a teenager when she was in Crazy Rich Asians, which is not the case.
which wouldn't be okay.
Crazy
Crazy rich underage Asian. Anyway, let's not
Rich under Asians.
let's not get hung up on guessing. I am getting back to the point that yes, people grew up on Kung Fu Panda, the franchise, and it was formative, and it's fun. I mean, one can take issue with the way the Chinese tropes are done, and like how much of it, like, I mean, I can say this just because I always say it about anything. They do the pronouncing Beijing thing all the time. You know, people who know Mandarin know. We don't have the French je as in je sais quoi. We have something that's like a J, but we always in the US, people always say Beijing. It's Beijing. This carries over whenever they see the J. For some reason, they francophile it. They make it a je. This also carries off to the, I'm gonna say, inconsistent pronunciation of things in Kung Fu Panda. But that's a small deal. But I'm just saying it because it's there. And Viola Davis is the villain, also known as the chameleon, and she's really good. So
Is
it's
this
like,
the first one Aquafina's in? She's not in any of the other ones.
yeah, that's the thing. So she's also, this is, so for her, you know, put her in her shoes for a minute. This is like getting to be in the Marvel movie for her, much more than being in a Marvel movie was. Because she did grow up on Kung Fu Panda, and now she's in one. Again, it's been like 8 years since Kung Fu Panda 3, so
so I guess those movies have been around a while.
yes, it was a long
Like
break
in my
since last
my
year.
like, you know, cultural memory, Kung Fu Panda is like a recent thing. It's not, but I guess the first one came out over 20 years ago. Is it
yeah,
true?
not so recent. I don't know what year the first one came out, but not that recent.
Yeah, if you said the last one was 8 years ago, I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things 8 years ago were like 27 years ago or whatever. So anyway, but it's really, I mean, it's really well done. The action sequences are
Holy
like,
shit, Kung Fu Panda came out in 2008.
okay, well,
No, but
okay.
that's
I would have thought it even
15
earlier,
years,
but okay, yeah.
you know.
Oh, because
so-
yeah, they had like a flurry of them, and I think they took a break to do.
But even then, so like
Sonic, but yeah.
if we're guessing her age correctly, she was in her early 20s when the first one came out, which is still a formative,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
time. I mean, it's not like she was 10 when it came out, which is one thing, but
Yeah, and again, I feel I should have asked her for more clarity on this.
no,
but
it's fine.
I feel
it's nothing
wonky.
to get hung up on. I know, and I'm not even really hung up. The reason I bring it up though is that, like, to your point about the Kung Fu Panda franchise, is that it stars Jack Black. The creators Or I don't actually. I'll take it back. The creators are Asian American, aren't they? Isn't the director?
Well,
Kind of.
mm,
Well, so the
let's
reason I
say
bring
it's
this up,
not. It is not prioritized for them to have Asians top lining. I'll say
yeah.
that.
So the reason I bring that up though is that like kind of the thematic thing I wanted to go with for this week's episode is that. Well, let's step back a second. So we're almost at the 1 year anniversary of the Oscar sweep of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Right. Yeah.
Like the biggest movie of that Oscar ceremony, and it kind of like kicked off a whole year of like Asian American media representation. Like the other night was the SAG Awards, and Beef. Ali Wong and Stephen Yeun have been winning everything for Beef.
Right. Beef was a big deal.
Beef was a big deal. You've had shows like Warrior has moved from Max to Netflix, and the profile has increased on that. Avatar: The Last Airbender live action just
totally,
which is a big deal. And what I find interesting is that like for all of the Asian American stuff, and we mentioned Bao Nguyen's movie earlier, like all the Asian American stuff isn't necessarily like in the trappings of or tropes of like what Asian American stuff is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, and I find it also interesting that a lot of like the Asian American stuff we've been getting have been created by non-Asian Americans.
Sure.
Like one of the things about Avatar that, my brother and I used to always talk about is that like, it's the one like quote unquote cultural appropriation that like everyone in Asian America gives a pass to because the creators and voice actors, Sans, Dante Bosco, and Mako were all white in the original animated Avatar. But like everybody in Asian America loved that show. So much so that when that property was given to an Asian American filmmaker,
right?
M. Night Shyamalan got raked over the coals.
It went bad
for whitewashing
right.
the last Airbender.
I like to think there's a good lesson there, not
well we come full circle because the creative team behind this adaptation are all Asian American. Albert Kim is the showrunner, and the cast is primarily Asian and indigenous, which is what the show reflects. But I do find it interesting, like the discourse around Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I don't know a lot of it. We used to cover it a lot on the Nerds of Color because we had so many fans of the property. But it's interesting to me that like this show, similar to Kung Fu Panda, which doesn't have necessarily like Asian Americans creating it, resonated so much for Asian American audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you a fan of the show at all?
Oh, again, no, that's when I missed imprinting on. And later, within the last couple of years, I caught up and was like, this is really good. I could see people getting into it. I wasn't big into it on the time, but I do think Avatar, that original animated series, is really good. And exactly what you said, not necessarily created by Asians, but does all the sort of weaving togethers and cultural exchange stuff really effectively. I'd add to that list Big Trouble in Little China. That movie I think is a great Asian movie that's from the lens of the not himself an Asian person, John Carpenter. Anyway, and to your thesis idea, I really like that. It's very interesting to remark to notice. I want to add that apart from the Asian thing, the great thing about Everything Everywhere All at Once was it was a really weird movie and opened a lane for stuff that is just not conventional. Apart from being Asian, it was just weirder than most Oscar movies that win, right?
Right. Not too many Oscar movies have, a dildo kung fu scene.
Absolutely not. Maybe not. Talking rocks.
Yeah. Raccoonies and everything.
It might be the weirdest Oscar win since, well, I don't know. I don't know if we can have that competition, but Silence of the Lambs, Slumdog Millionaire, those are, well, Slumdog Millionaire was going to get it, but anyway, I don't know.
Well, but the thing, and not to turn this into Everything Everywhere podcast, but like the biggest barrier that movie broke is that typically celebrated Asian films are particularly celebrated Asian films not by Asian filmmakers like Slumdog Millionaire or The Last Emperor are not celebrated for their Asian performers. Yeah. Right? Like the Asian people always get passed over for like the white director, like Danny Boyle got nominated for Slumdog, not Dev Patel.
Absolutely.
And you could have had a situation here where like Parasite, the actors, like the movie Parasite just acted itself, I guess, because the actors were not nominated, but it was the best picture, right? Right.
And what's his face? The short round guy, sorry, I was blank on his actual name, is in
Kiwi Kwan.
Yes, he has a voice. He has a voice part in Kung Fu Panda 4.
Well,
also,
his post everything everywhere like Renaissance has been like just cast him in everything. So
interesting. Yeah, right. I mean, that's one of those Hollywood rules. You do get this window where you're like going to be offered a lot of roles because you got
the
to
Quanaissance, I
because
guess
you
you could
got
call it.
right exactly. And I want to bring this up just not to be sound like a pessimist about everything, but that's what you're talking about. That year of there was a lot of Asian American content that we honestly haven't seen the like of before. Like Beef was hard style break from a lot of the Asian American stuff we see, right? Also, we're going in this year when, we have this freaking election and all the xenophobias are going to be at in like high degree. So it'll be a really interesting, there's some backlash possible, how we look, there's going to be a lot of xenophobic China baiting stuff that come out this year. So I wonder how that'll be reflected in pop culture. That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean it's something to think about because like to your point, it is like as we mark this 1 year anniversary and look back at all of the progress, it's a different space from even when we started this website when it comes to like Asian American representation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like if you dial it back a couple years, we were already mentioning Shang-Chi. We have our Asian American superhero show or
Yeah.
movie. We had our show. We had Ms. Marvel. So like
Yeah.
there's like a lot of these smaller steps. But I want to go back to this notion that like who can create Asian American content? Because to your point, you
Mhm.
mentioned the John Carpenter piece and how like for a long time that was the that was the one of the coolest Asian American things that was around, but it wasn't created by Asian American people.
Mhm.
The reason I bring this up, and it kind of ties into the Netflix piece too, is that the one show I've been obsessed about the last couple weeks is a show on Netflix called House of Ninjas. I don't know if you've seen it.
I'm glad you brought that up. A perfect example. Please go on.
Yes. A House of Ninjas, if you don't know, is a show on Netflix set in Japan. It follows a family of ninjas essentially, but they're since retired, and the shinobi are kind of like they're almost like superheroes, right? Because it's like the Incredible storyline where like the dad doesn't want to be a superhero anymore, but like his kids and his wife are still drawn to the lifestyle, and essentially the show is about there's this danger coming, and then they have to come out of retirement and put on the gear one more time. It's a great show.
Great.
And it's
Okay.
set in Japan. All the actors are well-known Japanese actors. The dialogue is all in Japanese, but it was created by a friend of Asian America,
Yes.
Dave
friend of-
Boyle. And Dave
yes.
Boyle is a white filmmaker whose like whole career has been propping up Asian Americans, which I think is very interesting about the films he's made in the independent scene,
Yeah.
over here.
Fair to say he created the Go Nakamura cinematic universe. Right?
Oh, for sure. Surrogate Valentine, Daylight Savings Time, right. I'm surprised does he have a song on the House of Ninja soundtrack?
I don't
He
know,
has
but
to, right?
but he worked on the soundtrack for the We Are the World doc. Did
Yeah,
you know
he
that?
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He worked on the
And
music.
good for him.
Yeah, so but Dave Boyle, like you're familiar with Dave's work.
Absolutely.
How have you seen House of Ninjas at all?
No, I haven't. I heard about it, and I'm glad you brought it up. You like the show?
I love the show. It's like
Great,
my
great.
favorite show on TV right now.
Yeah. So that's an interesting case, and we could feel free to talk about it because frick, it's all out there, and we're Asian American dudes. Dave Boyle and his producing partner Dwayne Anderson worked on a bunch of these indie films around Go Nakamura, doing some indie folk music kind of stuff. I won't say indie music stuff, black and white, styly, in total indie films with big Asian American cred, often the top lining, screening at Asian American festivals.
Any Asian American film festival, Dave Boyle's movie will be like
Yeah.
the most sought after ticket.
Unavoidable if you're doing Asian American film stuff. And yes, two white guys. And I worked with Dwayne Anderson on an indie movie that we did. Just gonna say, not as many Asians in it and is not as high profile. But anyway, I'm glad you heard House of Ninjas is good. Yes, a friend and a colleague, and we like that. We do see it's an interesting situation.
Well, but I think it taps into like this notion, like this utopian vision of like who can tell whose stories, right? Like
Mhm.
in a world of scarcity, like I think this is where a lot of these fights come from, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
if there aren't any Asian American stories, if the only ones that are blown up are the ones that are told from another good example is FX is about to premiere Shogun,
Yes. Yes.
which in the 80s was very much from the white gaze,
Yep.
which just for all appearances, this new version has been reclaimed. Again, similar to Avatar,
Yep.
right? Like where
Yeah.
the original version of Avatar was from the white male perspective, because that's who created the show.
Yeah.
That's who cast all the characters. And
Yeah.
then Asian Americans reclaimed it. Same thing looks like it's happening for Shogun, right? The James
Yeah.
Patterson book that's being turned into a miniseries.
Yeah.
So anyway, but in a world of scarcity, you can have those fights about who can tell those stories. But now that we're in this, like the reason I seeded this conversation with the plenitude of Asian American stories, are we in a place where it's okay that non-Asians are telling
Right.
Asian stories?
I think I concur with that. That's what a better world looks like. That's kind of what we're going for. But yes, in the old model, which is not that old, there was scarcity, and we could rightly say there's one Asian thing out and it's by a white guy. What about that? In a world where there's 6 Asian American things out and one of them is by a white guy, that means the world's better. Okay? I just want to put it's just better.
And where one of the things by an Asian guy is a documentary about We Are the World.
Right. That's what a more equitable world looks like. And so good. So let's hope we can keep that going for a bit.
Well, because part of what got me thinking about this is that, and I think what sets Dave apart from like any other kind of like white filmmaker who's kind of like in the space of telling Asian stories is that as I'm watching House of Ninjas, and right before I logged on here, I saw a social media post by Larry Hama where he was like kind of like celebrating the show.
Oh, good.
And it got me thinking, like, fuck, this is the Snake Eyes movie I always wanted. Right? Because like, or at least not the Snake, like our Chicago movie, because the problem with the Snake Eyes film, as much as I, love the idea of Henry Golding as Snake Eyes and finally got my Asian American Snake Eyes movie.
Yeah.
The whole movie is fucking trash. It's like not a good. It's clearly like Robert Schwenke or whatever his name is, kind of fetishizing ninjas and everything, and it's not great.
Yeah.
What I appreciate about House of Ninjas is that I wish the Arashikage movie was made like that, and that kind of care and attention to detail.
No, I gotcha. And that's a case of put the right guy on it, not necessarily with the race consideration first, but at least are they a person who considers race and has experience with the community? Put the right guy on it. And I'm glad you read that up because like I had another little social media little interaction the other day because you were talking about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Hiro Murai is like the
He directed
superstar
the pilot, and he's one of the producers.
Right, and he's his collaboration with Donald Glover is like great, like one of the great things in television.
Absolutely.
And so it came out like, oh, they're not sure about what they're doing with the next Spider-Man movie. They don't want this director. They don't want it. And I just voted, well, yeah, maybe they could get something really excellent for the next Spider-Man movie, like Hiro Murai. I don't know if he wants to do it, but come on.
Yeah.
Like, already works with Donald Glover, who is sort of Spider-Man associated in this weird way. Makes just really beautiful, strange shows.
I mean, and Donald Glover is already the Prowler in the multiverse Spider-Verse. So like it's not that far off.
I'm saying, so if you want your Spider-Man universe to be a little bit more interesting and not be this thing that people shit on all the time, Madam Web Morbius.
So did we see Madam Web and if we changed our tune on that film?
I tried, but I missed it because they stopped having like they went down to like 2 screenings a day, and I couldn't make one of those. I was like,
so you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Did you find out that your Spider-Woman squad actually does not show up for an iota of the film?
Just tell me whatever now.
They do not squad up.
Well, what the hell is in the trailer then?
The trailers are a dream sequence that Ezekiel has. He pictures his murder by the Spider-Woman squad, and the whole film is him trying to prevent that.
Oh my god.
So Dakota Johnson gathers the Spider-Women to keep them from, I guess, fulfilling their destiny of murdering Ezekiel. So they don't ever actually suit up in the spider gear. But I think at the very end, Dakota Johnson is blinded and she gets the Madam Web goggles at the very end of the movie.
That is such a weird tease. Sony Spider-Verse.
Yeah, you never see the Spider Squad.
That is a weird tease. All right, well, I'm back to that went from low priority to lower priority again. But I will watch the shit out of it when it's on whatever it comes out on. But yeah, so clearly, yeah, so that whole thing is messed up.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. And the Silk thing is messed up too. I don't know if you want to talk about that or if we
Oh,
talk
we can touch on it. I think I did want to put a button on the Asian content for Asian people and stuff. I hope, like, I would love to get Dave and or Dwayne or both on the pod one day, because I want to ask them a bunch of questions about, again, just being in the Asian American film space, but also specific questions. Like, do you know Dave personally at all? I know you know Dwayne.
In passing, I know Dwayne better.
Like, are they G.I. Joe fans by any chance? Because I kind of do want them to do a Arashikage movie.
I don't think that would be the weirdest pitch in the world. I bet they would at least make a stop motion one with action figures.
Oh yeah. Oh, and the reason I bring that, and you'll see, I don't know if it's an Easter egg or if it's just, it's also like a common surname in Japan, but there's a character in the show who's kind of like a Commissioner Gordon. I mean, he's fucking Commissioner. He looks like Commissioner.
Oh, okay.
He has the mustache and the trench coat. Like, he's basically, and he sends the bat signal up in the sky to, like, give them their assignments. But his name is Hama. And I was just like, is that a reference to Larry Hama at all? Like, if this was a show just made by Japanese people, I wouldn't think so. But, like, Dwayne and Dave gotta have, like, some G.I. Joe fandom. That's called,
again, they're the right age.
Right.
So
to call the guy responsible for the ninjas Hama has to have
awesome.
some.
Well, look, when we post this podcast, I'm friends with enough of them that I can tag them a question. So we'll tag them and just ask that, just as a
for sure. I would love
informative question.
Would love to talk to them about not just House Ninjas, but
I wouldn't be surprised if they both are G.I. Joe fans, and I wouldn't be surprised if the thing you just said is true. Yeah.
Or if that one detail was literally just for me.
Well, it kind of was, but, for people who know. Yeah. And yeah, Larry Hama really gave us all those things. And for all we know, that's why they were interested in being in Japanese American stuff in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's worth finding out.
But yeah, so just tying back to the Silk thing. So you also you've been very active on the Nerds of Color. Thank you for that.
Oh,
you wrote a piece recently about, there was a report that came out that Amazon is producing a Spider-Verse animated series around the Silk character that's actually showrun by a couple of
Angela King?
Asian American.
Oh wait,
creators.
is it animated? I didn't know it was animated.
I think it's animated. It's animated.
All right, go on.
So there was a report that came out in the wake of Madam Web's, like, total box office disaster, that Angela Kang has been told to go back and retool the show and give it a more male skewing perspective. Again, this is just a report in, like, Hollywood Reporter or Variety. We don't know that that's the case.
Yes, it's a Hollywood rumor.
But it is the fact that they're not coming out with it anytime soon, and they probably, there are multiple ramifications of Madam Web's box office non-success. So you wrote a piece about, like, this notion of male skewing the show to begin with, and what was your particular reaction to that story?
Well, it's a two-part thing. If the rumor is true, the whole we gotta male skew the audience because the woman and she's are in charge of it, or that whole narrative is obnoxious in itself, and that is, a long thing in Hollywood that we're just wrestling with. But the second part to me is, how did that specific thing get leaked, and why is it particularly about the show involving the Asian American woman lead? Not, say, another show, say, just hypothetically, that's, where the star is a white woman. I mean, that is so galling to say. We don't like this show, we're gonna make it male skewing. In this day and age, like, you can't just, like, say that unless you're dealing with, and I'm just going to say this, the people who are stereotyped as the model minority and will take it. I don't think if Brie Larson top lines that show, you even think about leaking, oh, we're going to go male skewing now because we don't like the direction Brie Larson is going. I think the internet would shit on their faces. Am I wrong here? Do you know what the question I'm posing? Like, and
to your point too, like, I wonder, like, how much validity is there to even the whole story?
And it might be totally wrong too. Yeah.
Angela Kang hasn't come out and responded either way, and she's, like, got her nerd bona fides, right? Like, she ran, I think, the last few seasons of Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, she's good. She's the person for it.
Right.
I think,
She's the exact right person to do any superhero show, any genre show.
yeah.
To your point about who leaked it, I wonder if it's someone in Sony who looked at the box office returns. This is what they want to happen. Calls up their, reporter friend at one of the trades and says, I think this is how, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know. We don't know like how these
Yeah.
Hollywood rumors start, but it definitely got picked up. And again, in the wake of Madam Web was the talk of the internet when it came out and bombed, right? And how it sets back not just the Spider-Verse, but potentially Marvel, right? Like, there's all these stories coming out about Madam Web's, disastrous box office. So maybe this is just a way. It could be like a behind-the-scenes power struggle between studio and showrunner, because Angela, for all we know, is like, fuck you, I'm gonna make the show I want to make.
Right.
So.
It could be. I want to get out in front of one narrative so it doesn't catch us by surprise, as, fool me once kind of thing. I want to get out in front of, you can't just do that because we're Asian and we go along with shit.
Yeah.
And
I think
we're not going
the
along
very
with
least,
that shit because we're Asian.
What could happen is that they just don't do the show, which is very possible.
That is very possible.
I mean, and they could film and complete the show and still not put it out. But that, I guess, if this was on HBO Max, that would be what happens.
As the trend is with women of color superhero-led movies. But look, there is a solution to this, which is not like the hardest one. We're looking at all the negatives, but you could also make a good Silk show. We want one. It's not like we don't want one. I want to get in front of the idea that Asians are like over, self-correcting ourselves all the time and end up with no content. Let's not go back there. We want a Silk show. Definitely want one.
I mean, and like, we already have a spider multiverse.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and we've proven that the animated Spider-Verse is leaps and bounds better than anything like. I mean, even the Tom Holland movies, you definitely put across and into way above the Tom Holland movies. So like, keep it animated, keep it.
And that's a fine way to go. Yeah, and note that the Asian Spider Person and Spider-Verse was the extreme Japanese gal. Extremely Japanese as far as presentation, and not
very anime. Very
anime, and not the really cool character like that robot. Love all that. They did not choose to have Cindy Moon, the Korean American one, but we will say Cindy Moon, the Korean American Spider Person, was seated in Insomniac Spider-Man 2, the video game, in a way that I don't think is going to upset anyone. In fact, it's a pretty cool setup. So again, with video games beating movies to the punch in terms of like being on the pulse of cultural stuff, sometimes. If Insomniac comes out with a cool video game version of Silk, I won't be sad. Well, Sony's still figuring out, oh God, can she be Asian? Is it too? What about the males? Do they get to? I mean, that's the thing that's just so annoying. Do the males get to have? You males already have your 19 Spider-Man shows,
right? Well, and if the pattern persists that you can only have one Asian Spider Person per Spider-Verse movie, because we had Spider-Man India in the second one, maybe there will be room for Cindy in the third Spider-Verse movie. Who knows?
I sure hope so. Oh, right, because that's fully possible. That could come out this year. Yeah,
but you can only have one. You can't have more than one,
right? Because it confuses people. Yeah, the funny thing also that ties in directly to Madam Web thing is the actual logistical story problem of Silk. Apart from all the Asian stuff, apart from all that stuff, is that her origin story is weirder in the comics than the other Spider. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Silk's actual.
Well, I'm familiar from what you've written.
Right. In the comics, her story is a weird outlier and it involves Ezekiel, who they already used in Madam Web, and is as weird and problematic a villain as he is in that movie. So this is probably not the case, but whoever makes whatever version of Silk, not Sulk, she does that too, of Silk Sulk or Spider Silk, has to deal with, are we going to do the comics origin story or not? Because it's just fucking weird. And also Ezekiel, who cares? I'm speaking Spider fan Ezekiel, who cares? Anyway.
It's wild that we get an Ezekiel Spider villain in a movie before we ever have gotten like Scorpion or some other iconic Hobgoblin has never been in a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. Oh, we totally need to do that Hobgoblin thing. Yeah. There's
a lot more like, I mean, Spider-Man's got a pretty, I mean, Craven's coming and that movie looks like dog shit.
Yay, whippy, but yeah. Again, Craven is cooler in the video game. See, this Spider-Man thing, the whole Spider-Verse, and again, it's large now, it is it almost maps onto the Asian thing. There's more plentitude, so you can get to see more examples. Put the right person on this, you get Spider-Verse. Put another person on this, you get something.
Adam Webb,
Right.
Morbius.
So you have choices. You have a lot of projects in the froth. Put the right people on it, and to put, not to put too fine a point on it. I'm one of those people. You can put me on any of them. Anyway, and that's my obligatory self-promotional for the day.
No, it's great. Actually, we don't need to end the self-promotion there. Do you have any 12 Valentine's updates or anything else nerd popping you want to get at?
Oh yeah. Well, I would like to. It's because we actually started recording some rough vocals this past weekend, which went really cool. I feel comfortable saying that, yeah, we're gonna 12 Valentines, my music project, is gonna progress soon, and we'll hope to make available a few demo tracks, a few glimpses of the song we're working on. And the one we started working on is a song called Scandal and Bane, which refers to a scene in the Secret Six comic book written by Gail Simone. You ever read Secret Six or no?
No, I have not read Gale's Secret Six.
Anyway.
I know
it's Suicide Squad
is.
Associated.
Right.
It's Suicide Squad Associated. It has Deadshot in it. And anyway, the song
And
is
Bane,
called...
I'm assuming.
Yep, and Bane is one of them. And then one of them is Scandal Savage, who is Vandal Savage's daughter. And it's a very like hodgepodge crew. And credit to Gail Simone, like James Gunn, she likes to pick out the really weird, obscure characters and bring them together and see what they do. And so Secret Six is really cool for that. Anyway, so I wrote a song, let me pronounce it right. I wrote a song ekphrastically inspired by this one scene in one of the Secret Six comics between Scandal and Bane. And I think it's going to be real cool because we just started doing some vocals this week. And again, it's one of those songs where you don't have to know the comic book stuff. It just it will add to your enjoyment of the song, but it is a song just about the situation that they're in and the two people. And the words Scandal and Bane happen to be like real words that you can say as opposed to like Batgirl or Green Lantern. So it's all woven together in theory. So yeah, we'll have some of that to preview to people soon.
That's very cool.
Thank you. And Keith,
I can't wait to. And of course, if you want to support the project, you can go to 12valentines.net, correct?
Yeah, that would be great.
And that will redirect you to all the appropriate places to give.
And we have perks too. I have perks I can't give away, but I will absolutely give you perks for giving some crowdfunding because they'll help for so many things to make the music better. I will happily give some perks. Anyway, go.
Since we're talking about DC real quick, before I get into what I'm geeking on, like,
oh yeah,
have you been following that, like, Superman Legacy just finished their table read? They're about to start shooting. There was this like really cool selfie that James Gunn took with the cast. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw the picture. After that was a nice moment. Table read. Nice. It's a nice vibe on that first table.
It's really happening.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, any type of like Superman film, like as we've seen the history of Superman movies, you can get all the way to like right before shooting and then they don't happen. Like, there've been so many Superman movies that have fallen apart. This seems to be, actually happening, but I've been there with Justice League Mortal. I've been there with Superman Flyby, the J.J. Abrams Superman movie.
Right.
There was the Kevin Smith Superman movie. There was the Tim Burton Superman movie.
The 8 of them that were like referenced in the last part of The Flash. Like, exactly. Jokingly, bittersweetly.
So, yeah. The next step is, I guess, to see, David Cornsweet in the actual red and blue.
Yeah.
Nicholas Hoult had his head shaved already, so we're finally getting a bald Lex Luthor and not like an excuse to have Lex Luthor have hair, and hopefully no beard, because that's another thing that's kind of like, I don't know if you've noticed, like live action Lex Luthors they've all been bald, but they've all had like beards, and it's weird to me.
Well, okay, this is a nerdy point, but is that his dad or is that Lex Luthor himself? I thought his dad was like the bearded one.
In Smallville was the only time they gave any personality to Lex's dad.
Okay.
And Lionel Luthor had this like mane of hair, which I thought was intentional, that you give Lex Luthor's father like all of the hair so that Lex has none of the hair. Yeah. But like it was a trend that started with Supergirl when John Cryer was cast Supergirl. He shaved his head, but he had this like dark beard.
Oh, okay, I see.
Right.
The John Cryer.
And then they cast for a brief scene in Titans, they cast the guy who plays Bosch on Amazon. I forget his name. Titus Welliver. And he was only in like one scene.
Oh, Titus Welliver. Yeah.
With a thick goatee. And I was like, wait, is this a thing? And then in the latest season of Superman and Lois, they cast, oh, I forget his name, but he was from The Walking Dead, Michael Kudlis.
Okay.
He was a big dude from The Walking Dead. Shaved his head, got a big old Sons of Anarchy beard.
Oh,
and
right.
it's just like, is this the thing now? It's like Lex just like, why is Lex bearded Lex is just weird. Lex should be, I'm not saying he should have alopecia, but he should be bald.
Right.
He should.
Right. They're playing with the sort of imaging of things. And I know you'll never play it, but it also is in the Suicide Squad game. They have it both ways. They have both the bearded version, and then in Elseworlds world version, he's like long hair and like the mad scientist look. So they have,
But good guy Lex, like Alexander Luthor, always had like the long flowing red hair. If you remember from the Crisis comics,
they fudge it a little bit, but they're just saying it's two alternate Lexes. And yes, Lex Luthor is basically on your side in the Suicide Squad narrative because he's helping you take down the Justice League, as per that Alexander Luthor. But anyway, but yeah, just on the hair thing, I like that they went with the sort of, wild haired, like, I can't remember what the main icon of that look is, but basically like a tech genius bro who maybe the guy who started Twitter, who was he had that kind of look, sort of a Thor kind of. Anyway.
Right. Well, but but oftentimes when they do cast a Lex Luthor, they find reasons that he's like not shaving his head. So like Jesse Eisenberg had hair for the entirety of Superman versus Batman.
Right.
Gene Hackman had hair in every film he was in as Superman. Superman, because he was quote unquote wearing a wig. Same thing with Kevin Spacey. He was wearing a wig, but it's just an excuse to not shave his head, basically. So anyway, the little things make me happy.
Yeah.
What I'm really nerd popping about, it actually goes back to the thematic thing of earlier in the episode where we were talking about white people who do Asian stories. This weekend I saw a film called Perfect Days by Wim Wenders.
Oh.
Which is this like kind of melancholy elegiac. How do you say the word? E-L-E-G.
Yeah, I've only seen it in print. I've never seen it.
Right, and now as you try to pronounce it, it doesn't.
Good for you.
But it's a beautiful film. Wim Wenders, of course, is the iconic German director of Paris, Texas, and
Wings of Desire and stuff like that.
So he did this film. It stars Koji Yakusho, who's one of like the most well-known Japanese actors. He was, if you recall the '90s film Shall We Dance, he was the main.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the film is about this public toilet cleaner who spends his days cleaning the toilets in Tokyo and has this very routine kind of like, ritualistic life where he goes to work and he comes home and he reads a book before he goes to bed. He cares for his plants. He has a routine where he goes to the bathhouse or goes to the subway to eat dinner. Like and then kind of like we follow him for like a week where there's some disruption to that life, and then it's a very kind of typical art house film.
Okay,
but it's Japan's entry into the Oscars this year. It's competing for Best International Feature. It's Japan's first film to be in that category where the director is not Japanese, which is interesting.
Oh,
I will recommend everyone sees the film. I really enjoyed it, and it just alone. Koji Yakusho's performance alone is worth seeing. There's this one take towards the end of the film where the camera stays on his face, and you literally feel every emotion while Nina Simone is playing in the background. That's another thing. We were talking about music earlier.
Yeah,
the soundtrack to this film is alone worth price of admission.
Awesome.
Of course, it's called Perfect Days, so the Lou Reed song kind of
great.
Figures in, but there's some great Patti Smith music in it. There's some great Otis Redding. It's just it was a kind of a wonderful theater experience I had watching this film over the weekend. So
awesome. When are those Oscars? Are they soon?
In a couple weeks.
Okay,
still a couple weeks away. So
yeah, I'll be interested to see. And again, to touching back on what we said earlier. If the backlash takes the form of like the most conventional safe movies win everything, I'm just not even saying white, but the most conventional safe movies win everything, I think that will be an interesting, notable sign of, well, some things I'm worried about. Because again, apart from the Asian stuff, Everything Everywhere All at Once was the most unconventional Best Picture winner in at least our whole lifetimes.
I mean, if we're going to play like predictions, I think Oppenheimer's winning Best Picture.
Sure, okay.
And I think Cillian Murphy's winning Best Actor.
Yeah. And we'd say those are the safe Oscar bets as far
Robert
as
Downey Jr. thinks he's probably the safest bet
Oscar.
as
Yeah,
a
okay.
supporting actor. Where I'm not sure where there may be some diversity, and it's not just the white males winning, is in actress. I think Lily Gladstone
She might
for
she might
Flower
win.
Moon.
Yeah.
I think Divine Joy Randolph will win for The Holdovers
hmm
for supporting actress, and I don't know who's going to win director. I don't think Christopher Nolan's going to win director. I think they'll give Greta Gerwig the adapted screenplay to make up for not nominating her for director.
Okay. Yep.
But those
That
are my bold predictions for the
All right, cool. Yeah. If you can bet on that stuff, put money on it.
Oscars.
Okay. Also, I don't super care about the Oscars as much as I know you used to.
Yeah.
I watch them for, signals of where the tides are going.
Sure.
I'm not gonna get broken up if anyone wins or loses.
Right.
Particularly this year because I was slightly invested in people winning or losing for everything everywhere, and they did. So
They won everything last year.
yeah.
With that, Dominic, how can people find you on the interwebs?
I'm Dama, DOMMAH on Instagram and the X and Blue Sky. And I just started TikTok this week too. So please come traffic me on TikTok where I'm Dama1 or Dama as opposed. So
Really? You are not the only Dama on TikTok.
yeah, I just tried to follow the guy who is Dama Prime. And of course, sorry, for those of you who know me, my name is also a Vietnamese curse word. So he's making the joke that this is just a funny thing in my life. My name sort of sounds like a Vietnamese curse word. He's making the Vietnamese curse word joke. So he's Dama and I'm Dama1. DOMMAH1. Follow both of us. But one of them is a dirty Vietnamese joke and one of them isn't. Anyway. And Keith?
Yeah, the Real Chow on Twitter and Real Keith Chow on Instagram. Follow the Nerds of Color on all platforms. Maybe we don't have a TikTok. Maybe we can put you in charge of the Nerds of Color TikTok.
I'd be happy to do Nerds of Color TikTok.
Since you are expanding your social media presence.
Just sign up for that, puppy.
We are hardknockmedia.com for the podcast, youtube.com/the Nerds of Color for the videos, and follow us, like I said, on all platforms. And until next time,
celebrates third generation Asian Americans as well as first and second generation Asian Americans. That's something I want to say in public more often than it gets said. And also, Happy New Year.
Gong Hei Fa Choi. Oh.